Welcome back. You are with Afternoon Agenda. Let's bring you some more reaction now to the fallout we're seeing from the Telstra outage yesterday. Joining me live in the studio is the Shadow Assistant Minister for the Shadow Treasurer and Cost of Living, Dean Smith. Senator, good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Good to be here.
What is your reaction to Telstra? We just had the Green Senator Sarah Hatson-Young on a few minutes ago on a program. Our viewers would have heard her calling for stronger laws, also stronger penalties for company executives when these sort of incidents happen. Is that sort of thing necessary?
Well, I think in the first instance, the Australian community will be looking for a very full and comprehensive response from Telstra executives about what were the causes of this outage, looking for a clear explanation about what is the remedies to be put in place. I think the latest outage for telco industry here in Australia raises a couple of important questions. Clearly, is the penalty regime strong enough? Are executives being held accountable? But I think also, what is the true state of critical infrastructure more generally in Australia? We've seen an Optus outage. We've now seen a Telstra outage. We had a very significant outage at the RBA, which has been less reported on. So I think there's a question here about what is the true state of critical infrastructure in Australia. I think Telstra executives should be preparing themselves to appear before the Senate Environment and Communications Committee. That committee is currently doing its inquiry into the Optus outage. So I think Australians will be expecting some very, very clear answers from Telstra.
Has the opposition been playing politics with this issue? We've seen some perhaps questionable behaviour from some of your colleagues. We saw testing out of the 000 line to see if it works or not from one of your colleagues. Another Senate colleague of yours from South Australia suggesting that an elderly person had died as a result of the 000 calls, but South Australian police saying that didn't happen.
Well, I think it's important to be clear about the facts, and that's why it's important for Telstra to respond in a very full and comprehensive way as quickly as possible. I think this is an attempt by the government on a grand scale to detract from what are the substantive issues. What has the government been doing since the Optus outage? I think it's totally fair and reasonable for Senator Henderson, for example, to have applied some due diligence to satisfy herself before doing media. So I think that these are distractions from the substantive issue. Clear questions for Telstra, but clear questions for the government. What has the government been doing in the time that's elapsed since the last Optus outage and now the most recent Telstra outage? So I think Annika Wells has a lot of explaining to do, and when the Parliament resumes, there'll be an opportunity for us to do that.
I wanted to ask you about a story in your home state of Western Australia. A state seat by-election is coming up. Labor's just announced their candidate for that today. The reason it's interesting on a national scale is because this state seat of Secret Harbour falls into your colleague Andrew Hasties' seat of Canning. It's being pitched as a One Nation versus Labor battle. Is that right, do you think? Is the Liberal Party not really in the mix for this state seat by-election? And does it have broader implications as to the One Nation vote in Andrew Hasties' seat?
Well, anyone who lives and works in Andrew's seat knows that he's a first-class and very, very capable federal member of Parliament. This is clearly WA Labor's test and the test for Roger Cook. What I would point to is the cost of living pressures that are being experienced by people in the seat of Secret Harbour. We know that these are suburbs that have a very high proportion of mortgages. We know that cost of living pressures are real for West Australians. So I think this will be an election fought on economics. It'll also be fought on whether or not the Labor Party has been delivering for local communities. A train station that was promised in 2017, yet to be operational. We know that the Premier has enjoyed, I think, a pretty easy run so far. Basil Zemplis has been doing an excellent job as the opposition leader, but this is Labor's test. It'll be a test about the economy and be a test about whether or not Labor has it still continues to enjoy the confidence of West Australian community.
But after what we've seen in Farah in South Australia, surely if One Nation picks up a seat within Andrew Hasties' federal seat of Canning, that would lead to panic stations in Liberal headquarters.
I think what happens when we talk about the electoral dynamics in Australia generally at the moment, people sort of jump ahead of where we are. There's a campaign to be run, there are candidates to be endorsed. It could be a 5 or 6 week campaign. So people do like to sort of jump to the end of the campaign and implications. I'm someone who says, well, let's just approach this day by day and let's see the strength of the Labor Party campaign. Let's see what One Nation does in fact deliver. Let's see what are those local issues that will sort of come to the fore once the campaign's underway. But this is WA Labor's test. It's a test for the Premier, Roger Cook.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to read, and we will be watching it day by day. Don't worry about that. Finally, I wanted to ask you about some international reports focusing on Australia's economy. We've seen Jim Chalmers saying the IMF report showed that Australia is doing better than most advanced economies. The OECD report has come out as well, which I know you've done a bit of a deep dive on. What's the snapshot?
I think the most reliable data set is what Australian families are feeling for themselves. They are feeling the pressures of inflation. That inflation is being fuelled by excessive government spending. They are feeling the pressure of 15 interest rate rises under Labor, 3 of those interest rate rises this year alone, possibly a 4th when the RBA next meets. We know that real wages are falling. So the next election will be about the economy. I think the most reliable data set is what Australian families are experiencing for themselves. Consumer confidence is falling, business confidence is falling. So I think the OECD report is just further evidence of what Australians are already feeling. And this again will be a test for Anthony Albanese and Jim Chalmers.
Liberal Senator Dean Smith, thanks for coming in.
Great to be with you.